It's so nice to see you all here. And I'm looking at the number of participants and it keeps going up. We're at 45 now. And I look down, oh, it's 46. Oh, it's like ticking. So this is very exciting. So welcome to the Dawn Wing's doctoral defense, her oral defense today. And it's very exciting to see so many people here. And the title of Dawn's defense, I'd like to say that up front, is Exploring Stories at the Intersection of Landscape and Linguistic Literatures through Wildness, Beauty, and Imagination, a scholarly personal narrative. And I'm so excited for all of you to sit and listen to what all these words mean and how they come together to create something really amazing and phenomenal. And by way of introduction, my name is May Eloar. I am the chair of Dawn's dissertation committee. I'm happy to say that to introduce Dr. Jennifer Wells and Dr. Lucy Tapahanso, who are also members of this committee. And Dawn will introduce everyone more thoroughly when she does her presentation. We're also joined by many elders, teachers, community members that we would love to recognize, and Dawn will do that also in her presentation. So we're going to start today with Dawn presenting her work for about 40 minutes. And then the committee will get a chance to have a discussion with Dawn, offer reflections, appreciations, and questions. Then we'll open it up to everyone here to ask questions or offer reflections as the committee confers. And then the committee will come back before noon Pacific Standard Time to let Dawn know about our decision. So welcome all again. And please, it usually works best if we all mute unless we are speaking because of background noise. And also cell phone turned off and so on. So thank you all for coming, and I will turn it over to Dawn.
Thank you so much, May. And I am overwhelmed with gratitude right now. I want to first thank my extraordinary committee with Dr. May Eloar, Dr. Jennifer Wells, Dr. Lucy Tapahonso. I have been beyond blessed in this journey in ways that I will live with forever, and in ways that created the perfect journey for the perfect dissertation and perfect PhD journey for me. And so I would like to honor each of them now and speak to their spirits, their expertise. And so May, my chair, her background is in women's spirituality. May was my professor my first semester and subsequent semesters, and her lens through which she experiences the world and this work and the depth, the breadth, the heart, the wisdom resonated with me immediately. And she also brings great wisdom and great knowledge about scholarly personal narrative, which we'll be diving in deeper. And Jennifer Wells, maybe if you wave, Jennifer Wells. Jennifer was also, I think, my first semester and subsequent semesters. And again, Jennifer and I, Jennifer's background is in sustainability and complexity and global sustainability, climate change. And again, as soon as she and I started speaking, it was this immediate connection and as if we were speaking the same language. And I had the privilege of being Jennifer's TA for a semester, which was, it was a wonderful experience. And Lucy Tapahonso, who is the poet laureate, the inaugural poet laureate of the Navajo Nation, and whose work I know many of us absolutely love. And I was at the New Mexico Writers Award dinner, and Lucy was the keynote. I'm going to share something that she shared there. And it was as if it went directly into the heart, into my heart and into my inquiry. And so I wanted to honor her. And I can only see a few people now on the screen, but I also wanted to welcome Dr. Nerita Blair, who joins us from Australia. It is 4 a.m. if she's, and I hopefully she's on, and she is the professor and creator of Lilliology, which has been a phenomenal gift, and I'm so grateful and honored that she got up at 4 a.m. I'll bring your tea next time so she could be with us. But I wanted to, as we begin, ground us in kind of how this journey began, and in rhythms that have been a part of it along the way by some of the people who inspire me. And that is back here on this table. So Terry Tempest Williams, our beloved Terry Tempest Williams, always writes with a cup or a bowl of water on her desk to remind her that evaporation is occurring even when we can't see it. I mean, that transformation is occurring even when we can't see it, just as the water evaporates. And so I'd like to place this here. And la grandísima, la increíble Isabel Allende, before she sits to write, always lights a candle to invite the spirits. And so in honor of the spirits, in honor of Isabel Allende and all those who came before us and join us, I'd like to light the candle. And I have asked each of my committee members if they might start our time together with a blessing in their mother tongue. And so first it will be May, and then Jennifer, and then Lucy, and then Ned. Dr. Blair prefers, loves to go by Ned. And so if the four of you might unmute so that we can just keep the blessings fluid as we go. Thank you, May.
Thank you, Dawn. My mother tongue is Arabic, and I'm offering a blessing in classical Arabic, which is how Arabic is written and read, and which is understood by the whole Arab world, which has multiple dialects, that are very divergent and different. So Dawn, as you know, your name in Arabic is Duha. So I'm offering you this blessing. Azizati Duha, في هذا اليوم المميز أتمنى لك كل التوفيق والنجاح، وأتمنى لك مستقبلا مزهرا بالخيال والجمال والإبداع.
And Jennifer Wells.
Dawn, thank you so much. My mother tongue is English, and I knew from the first conversations we've ever had that you have a rare, extraordinary capacity to draw on beauty and poetry and the winds of dance and transformation, the illumination of the spirit through language and light. And to see the way it manifested in this gorgeous dissertation is a blessing for all of us. So I want to turn that blessing back first of all, and just thank you so deeply for all the hard work you put into this.
And Lucy.
I'm having trouble with my video. Been there. I'm Navajo. Been there. So I'm going to just give a brief wish of prayer. So, Kodeshin Jonogo, the Sadan Wing Oyeheki, Jonogo Baadolni. The dissertation was Behegi, Jonogo Baadolni, Jonahasli. So they said, may this event go well, go surrounded by beauty for Dawn, as the process has been, and that in undertaking this this event, may all people and all listeners, her family, her pets, all be surrounded by the beauty in this work, and will guide us into the future, carry us into the future.
And Ned.
Thank you, Dawn. Unfortunately, my mother tongue is English with colonization. And in Australia, it's very important for us to give an acknowledgement of country. And that's country with a capital C, being the earth, the tides, people, the stars, the insects. It's every one of those elements. So I acknowledge the country that I'm from, which is Woolly Woolly country and Waka Waka country in Queensland, where my father was from. I'm on Darkinjung country, which is about an hour and a half north of Sydney, beautiful coastal country. And I acknowledge the spirits of these countries and my ancestors, because I know I sit with them in an incredible honour, Dawn, to be here with you and other people. I acknowledge your countries wherever you're sitting at the moment and where you're from, because I know that we all bring the power of those spirits and the power of that country with us to this morning's dissertation defence. And I'm very grateful, Dawn, for the invitation.
Oh, I am awash with gratitude that you are here, Ned. I'm kind of fangirling right now. I have to tell you, this is the first time that I've actually seen and spoken with Ned. So thank you so much. And what beautiful. Thank you to all four of you for being so integral to this journey. And I found myself, I realized the one thing I forgot, which was Kleenex. As you were each speaking, I thought, where's my tissue? Thank you so very, very much. And so I will now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we shall dive into these ideas. Let's see here. That moment that we all pray, please let it work. Okay. Good. Let me go ahead and. So I want to, first of all, also thank my committee members, thank Ned, thank every single one of you for sharing this moment, for sharing this time today. It's incredibly meaningful to me. I know the rich, full lives that all of you lead. And I just, from my heart, thank you, thank you. And I also want to acknowledge my family. I want to acknowledge my kids who are joining us, and my dad, my parents, my husband, my brother. Thank you so much for all of your support along this journey. And so we are diving into exploring stories at the intersection of language and linguistic literature through wildness, beauty, and imagination, a scholarly personal narrative. And so we began with our blessings. And I know I'm always interested with, well, everything, but one of the things is how did this all, like when I'm watching dissertation defenses or listening to people talk about their books, is how did it begin? And so I wanted to ground us in how did this begin? How did we end up here? And so like many of us, I live in multiple, sometimes overlapping lives. And so this picture right here, and many of whom are joining us today from Chile, from Costa Rica, from Mexico, is working with teachers. So my background in bilingual education, multilingual education, second language acquisition, pedagogy, linguistic human rights, eco-linguistics, working with teachers all over the world in those areas. And so that is one of the, so that's one of the things I bring is those 25 years of linguistic human rights, eco-linguistics, multiple language acquisition. Now, during this time, I am also living and am grounded in landscape literature, in place-based writing, in that connection of of the land, in the voice of the land, in the personal relationship with the land. And what I noticed years ago was that what I was learning in academia about language loss, and you'll hear me say this, but I'll say it now, we have lost 50% of the world's languages in the last 500 years. And at the rate that we're going, we will lose 90% of the world's languages in the next 100 years if we don't do something to change that. And so the whole intention of this inquiry, hopefully, is for these multiple areas to infuse one another and to spread the understanding of the crisis, the eco-linguistic crisis that we currently find ourselves in. And of course, during this time, and this was the first day that we brought Wynn home from the hospital, and there's Wyatt and Luke. Of course, during this time, and here we are, here's my gang. I wanted and hoped to be a very present mom, and I wanted to be with my kids. I wanted them to be with me. And so as far as when to start a PhD, it waited until the perfect time, which was for me, which was when everybody headed off to high school. And this is because, you know, really, underneath it all, I'm just a scruffy ranch kid, and that's absolutely the truth. This is growing up on our ranch in Arizona, and this is my parents' ranch in South Dakota, and being writing and listening and hearing my dad talk about holistic resource management, regenerative agriculture, and it's all about diversity and natural migratory patterns. So thinking about all of this and knowing, okay, it's time. I think it's time. Well, I know it's time for me to go back for my PhD, but I couldn't find a program that I knew I didn't want a discipline-driven program because I just don't think that way. I just am quiet about that in certain settings, primarily academic, up until I came to CIIS. And Marty Anderson, who's with us today, and I were working in Chicago and having dinner after our day of work. And I mentioned to her that I was looking for a PhD program, and I'd actually found one that I decided on, but it wasn't really what I had in mind. And Marty, who is an alum, said, I know the perfect program for you. It's got to be CIIS. So I checked out CIIS and learned that there is a word for this. There's an academic word for my way of engaging with the world within academia, transdisciplinarity. And I love, and this is Jennifer Wells, who has an expertise in this area, and why transdisciplinarity is so important to this, it's so important to my own inquiry. And what I'm going to ask people to do is I will read, so I gotta move this out of the way, but what I'm going to encourage you to do is to not read along with me, because I find that very confusing. Maybe just listen, just allow yourself to listen, whatever works best for you. The unprecedented global linguistic and environmental crises do require us to move beyond discipline-specific and isolated analyses and into a richer and deeper perspective, as only a thoroughly transdisciplinary perspective can navigate such issues, which are at once technological, cultural, ethical, political, economic, and ecological. And I love this. True transdisciplinarity is demanding. It requires creativity and often courage, but today is a key requirement for future science. And that is the grounding of this inquiry. So bringing all these things together, and this is also my theoretical, this is really where much of my literature review is grounded. So within that academic world, This world of multilingual education, language acquisition, linguistic human rights, eco-linguistics, it is overwhelmingly written about in an academic voice, which is often unapproachable and inaccessible really to people outside of academia. So then within landscape literature, there's this connection to place, beauty in the land, personal relationship with the land, and a real focus also on ecological loss and what is happening around the world right now with the ecology. And it is primarily written about in the creative narrative voice. Now, what I noticed living in both these worlds is so much of the vital information that is so necessary for global sustainability, which is what these writers and readers are passionate about, was and is not making it into this field. And I became aware then, maybe 15 years ago, that's a contribution I can make and that I wanted to make. And then linking that with our family's background and living with the land through holistic resource management, regenerative agriculture. So this whole idea, and it comes out of South Africa from Alan Savory, is you replicate the migratory patterns of animals in nature. And one of the things that has led to so much land destruction around the world and in the American West is when fences were introduced, then the grasses were eaten down. There was no migrating. There was no churning of the soil underneath hooves so that the moisture in the seeds could penetrate the soil and then move on so they could grow, because the cattle are kept in one place. And so with regenerative ag and holistic resource management, you replicate the natural migratory pattern of wild animals, but within the contained system. Now, the whole point of this is to create diversity, is to create biodiversity and a richness and a healthy land. This is primarily written about also in creative nonfiction. So my inquiry and what we're diving into is right here in this sweet spot. So this inquiry seeks to integrate language as an intrinsic element of landscape by postulating landscape literature through the lenses of wildness, beauty, and imagination. And these lenses of wildness, beauty, and imagination, I also hope will contribute to this academic world. I have not seen those perspectives in that world, and that is another contribution that I hope to make. So my inquiry question, and you'll see a lot of pictures here from my morning runs. I take a lot of photos when I run. This is one of them. So, and again, I'm going to ask you to just kind of allow, we can all just kind of sink into this. How can exploring stories at the intersection of landscape and linguistic literatures through engaging wildness, beauty, and imagination contribute to the global movement toward eco-linguistic justice? So I hope by the end of this, you'll have some ideas how. And the sub-questions. And I want to honor Dr. Marie Hooper, who created this stained glass for me, who was also my TA my freshman undergrad year, and who was with us here today. How do the genres of landscape literature, eco-linguistics, linguistic human rights, and the field of holistic resource management articulate the relationship between language and landscape? So first, I dove in to see, okay, what is everybody saying about it? And what does that relationship look like? How can eco-linguistics and linguistic human rights enrich landscape literature? And what wisdom, what deep wisdom can the lenses of wildness, beauty, and imagination bring to eco-linguistics, landscape literature, and holistic resource management? Here's some key words that I'll be using and that infuse this inquiry. And I wanted to make sure that we're grounded in at least the understanding that I bring to this inquiry. And that's beauty. And I truly believe that one of the greatest things we can do is create beauty in the world. And it is through this framework a deep and holistic philosophical framework as understood through the indigenous worldview and expressed in Dene as Hosho, meaning to live in peace, balance, beauty, and harmony. So when I refer to beauty, it is peace, balance, beauty, and harmony. That is what I'm talking. That's the lens for this. Eco-linguistics explores the relationship between the language and the land, between languages and the land. And imagination taps into the possible and potential realities that it is our job to actualize. So we don't just think about it, we think about it, we see the possibilities, and then we take action to create that, to make that happen. It also presents us with a world that would not be complete without our help. Keywords: wildness. And from our incredible Terry Tempest Williams, it means to be whole, to be complete. Wildness reminds us what it is to be human, what we are connected to, rather than what we are separate from. And as far as these ideas, I bring Rick Bass into our time. If it's wild to your own heart, protect it, preserve it, love it, and fight for it, and dedicate yourself to it. If it's what makes your heart sing, if it's what makes your days soar like a hawk in the summertime, then focus on it, because for sure it's wild. And if it's wild, you're free, no matter where you are. And there's that element of creativity. We recognize wildness as creativity in the extreme. So here's my literature review. Here's just a few of the books that I've been nestled amongst these past years. And so really, again, there were three main areas, those three that we just talked about: eco-linguistics, linguistic human rights, landscape literature, and the holistic resource management. So let's dive a little bit into eco-linguistics. Okay, so that means the relationship between language and the land, any given language and its environment. And of course, language comes from the land. What is spoken, the language that is expressed and spoken is in the desert, is unique and distinct than the languages that are created in the dense jungles. And they reflect the wisdom that has come from tens of thousands of years of people living in those environments. And this is also a very key element of eco-linguistics by our dear Tobias Kangas and David Harmon. Eco-linguistics explores the role of language in the life-sustaining interactions of humans, other species, and the physical environment. So how the language we use to express those relationships matters. Linguistic human rights. They can be defined best as it is the inherent right of every person on this planet to speak their mother tongue anywhere, anytime they want, in any kind of a professional setting, in any kind of a legal setting, absolutely in any home setting. And as many of you know, but for those of you who don't, there are horrors that have been perpetrated throughout history by colonizers primarily. Language is also about control, where the dominated people are forbidden from speaking their mother tongue. Here in the American West, the indigenous languages, throughout Mexico, the indigenous languages. And again, the vast majority of languages that we are losing are indigenous languages. And so again, I bring our attention to the fact that if something doesn't change, we'll lose 90% of those within the next 100 years. And here's our amazing Lucy. And this was when I was sitting there when she read this in Santa Fe. And she said, and I hope I pronounce the Dene correctly. Forgive me, please, if I don't. Saad is the Dene word for language, which was given to us by the Holy Ones. Saad contains the wisdom of stories, history, songs, prayers, and teachings that were meant to guide us into the future. It is adaptable and relevant to our changing lifestyles. The holy ones knew we would be blessed and sometimes threatened. Zod is also portable because it lies in our way of life, our approach to challenges, and in our attitudes about the land, water, animals, plants, and environments. And I was there on my birthday, March 28th, and in that moment, I just felt this, like, you know, when you just feel this energy, this, and it was like she was speaking directly to, she was expressing all that I hoped I'd be able to give language to. So thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing those words and your spirit with the world. And, you know, this reminds me, there are a number of people here today who are here with babies, and that idea of for the next generation. And I know baby Pela is here, Olin is here, Valeria Elizabeth. And I shared with May some photos before we met, and she said, well, that's what this work is for. This work is for the next generation. And another, I love this quote, of all the art by Earl Shores, of all the arts and sciences made by man, none equals a language. For only a language in its living entirety can describe a unique and irreplaceable world. I saw this once in the forest in southern Mexico. A butterfly settled beside me. The color of it was a blue unlike any I had ever seen. There are 9 different words in Maya for the color blue in the comprehensive Borrua Spanish Maya dictionary, but just 3 Spanish translations, leaving 6 butterflies that can be seen only by the Maya, proving beyond doubt that when a language dies, 6 butterflies disappear from the consciousness of the earth. In landscape literature, and this, I just took this picture. This is my parents' ranch on the Great Plains, and Wyatt and I were out for a walk that day with our dogs. In landscape literature, that specific relationship between the land, and that lifts the landscape to be a primary character at the center around which all revolves. And Susan Twite, who is here with us today, is an exquisite writer in landscape literature, and I'm so honored she's here. And these writers convey the landscape as a living entity. The writer's own relationship and experience infuse this genre. And so it's a lot of autoethnography. Terry Tempest Williams, Susan Twite, Craig Childs, Barry Lopez. So what emerged from the literature review? And that one can really never have too many sticky notes, I discovered. So what I did is I went through all the literature review, and these are common themes that are coded by color. Eco-Linguistics, linguistic human rights. Language is an element of landscape. Landscape health, necessary for global survival. Wildness, beauty, imagination. And what was highlighted was the gap of language as an element of landscape within landscape literature. I will say Robin Wall Kimmerer is one, and many of us are familiar and know and love her work. She is a voice that does speak to that. And the gap of eco-linguistic and linguistic human rights research beyond academia. The fact that languages are so interwoven with the ecology, with global health. I found that I found room to write there. And the methodology, and I love this. May and I, who've been meeting every 2 weeks at least for the last many months, if not more, we were talking one day, and just spontaneously we were talking about methodology, and spontaneously May said, I love epistemology and methodology. That is where we can be most radical. And so, and the methodology that grounds this inquiry, scholarly personal narrative. And I fell in love with scholarly personal narrative as soon as May introduced it to me a couple of semesters before I was going to write my dissertation, because what it does is it brings together academic rigor, which we call vigor, SPN, and the creative voice. Because I couldn't figure out, how am I going to write in a way that will be credible in academia, and will be readable and will be approachable for the general public in landscape literature and holistic resource management. Well, scholarly personal narrative is that way because the epistemology of SPN, when well done, combines scholarship, personal stories, and universalizable themes and insights in a seamless manner. We'll see how I do. So the overall methodology is you start with pre-search, there we go, me-search, research, and we-search. So how do I get started? I started by pulling out 25 years of journals from our garage, boxes and boxes and boxes, and highlighting and color coding, looking at those themes: language, landscape, wildness, beauty, imagination. Language, and what was I reading at the time? What was happening in my life at the time? What was going on in my life? Me search, what is my personal narrative? So that is, for me, that's when I figured out, I think I bring a unique lens to landscape literature because of my background in eco-linguistics and linguistic human rights. What scholars and researchers have informed my writing. I loved this. And so for eco-linguistics, linguistic human rights, of course, our dear Tove Skutnik-Kangas, Robert Phillipson, Sune Bort Stephenson, linguistic literature is, again, Craig Childs, Susan Twite, Terry Tempest Williams, Robert McLean. I could go on and on. Amy Niskukumatado, who is one who I discovered and fell in love with. And then we search. So then we take all of that. Now, what does it mean for my field? What does it mean for my profession? What does it mean for the world? And that's what we put out into the world. So again, here are just a few of those journals. I could have taken photos and photos and photos, but I lived amongst these piles for years. And then the color coding of those journals and for those of you who are on this path, this is my dissertation notebook that Luke gave to me a couple of Christmases ago. This is, I don't think I've gone anywhere without this. I don't even know how long, but that's what is down there in that corner as I was color coding and looking for specifically for my inquiry question and the sub questions, because I know one of the dangers for those of us who love to learn and are working on dissertations is you get going this way or that way or this way, and everything seems so interesting. So I kept going back to what's my inquiry question, what are the sub questions? And for all you researchers out there, many of you are here, Chill Lee, scholarly personal narrative research uses this language: vigor rather than rigor, subjective experience rather than experimental design, personal testimony instead of evidence, perspectives over data, introspective questions instead of interview questions, universalizability rather than replicability, according to my experience, acknowledges limitations, plausibility, honesty, coherence replaces hypothesis, and illustrative embedded references replaces literature review. In my case, I did both. And this amazing gift to my work and my life that Ned created, Dr. Blair, and that is the theoretical framework of Lilliology. And I'll never forget, and I have it here, May and I were in one of our meetings, and she said, Dawn, I found out about this fabulous theoretical framework called Lilliology. And she had just purchased this book. And I said, tell me about it. And of course I had to go on and get Ned's other book about Lilliology. But these, okay, so what is Lilliology? I'll phrase using Dr. Blair's own words: a transformative framework and storytelling practice to decolonize critical ethical spaces for academic research. Lilliology embodies relatedness, connectedness, and a sense of belonging that embraces co-becoming with country. So you can see why May and I were just, we're just overjoyed. This theoretical framework specifically, so my methodology is SPN and the theoretical framework, Lilliology, and why it was so integral to this particular inquiry. This framework embraces ecosystems, natural landscapes, and indigenous languages as vital, integral, and necessary elements for global sustainability. Now, I want to tell you one of the reasons why this resonated so deeply with me when May first mentioned it. Some of you will be familiar with this. This is Tove Scutum Congos's water lily metaphor for mother tongue languages. And every time I hear lily, of course, this is what I visualize. So this is something that I painted. And for those of you new to the idea that a mother tongue language is like a water lily, that the stronger the stem and the deeper the roots, the stronger the flower, and this represents the mother tongue language, and the leaves that come off of it. Now, we know that there's one stem for water lilies. So what happens when that mother tongue stem, so here it grew one flower, maybe that language is Spanish, and it's starting to grow another flower, maybe that is the additional language, maybe that's English. And then they go to school and suddenly they're no longer allowed to speak Spanish or whatever their mother tongue is. So this may look pretty on the surface of the water for a while. It may float there for a while, but all of the nourishment necessary for both languages to thrive comes through the mother tongue stem. And so neither of these will flourish in the long run. And so well-developed bilingualism, a strong mother tongue, strong language literacy, and well-developed bilingualism. So then when I heard about Lilliology, Ned's Lilliology, I had to paint it. And so I could understand it. And so again, this all draws from country. And gosh, I hope, Ned, that I do justice to this with you here. And so no pressure. So, and what these, and again, these water lilies, and what's interesting is because I shared the water lily image of the mother tongue languages with Tove, and then I shared with Ned as well. And Tove mentioned that the water lilies they have in Finland and in Denmark, she lives, are white. And then you mentioned that as well, Ned, which I thought was fabulous. I have to learn how to draw paint white water lilies. These represent stories. And so the different textures, the different colors, the different petals, the colors, the shape, are genres of knowing. It's not homogeneous. And this is the visible. Storying, indigenous stories, indigenous storying, voices that have historically been silenced within academia. That is what the water lily recognizes. And stem and the height and the width are dependent upon the country embedded within. And down here, we have the nourishing roots, which we'll get to here. And the brick wall represents the academy, what represents indigenous experiences historically in Western academia. And each brick represents one area within, so it could be, feminist theory, this could be linguistic human rights, this could be English, and the boundaries between those are distinct. And it has been a boundary and a brick wall for so many voices historically. Now, the sweet potato, the bush potato, represents the nourishing, which is also down here, the nourishment, the energy to sustain and energize and for growth. And I think of with those spirit knowings, I think about the candle lit behind me. And the spaces are between indigenous knowing and Western knowledge. And the spider web overlays and integrates and brings all of it together. I hope to be a spider web. So it is grounded in story. It is iterative rather than linear. And it's not about finding the right story. It's about lifting many stories, as Terry Tempest Williams would say, so that justice may rule on the side of deep time and a storied landscape that has been held in place by the roots of indigenous wisdom. And I want to be very cautious as a white woman, as an Anglo woman, and acknowledge the appropriation that has happened in academia throughout history. And so I want to make sure and articulate and ground us in I hope to lift this as a restorative contribution. A primary intention of this inquiry and recognition of history is one of restoration. This transdisciplinary inquiry pays homage to the foundation of story and uplifts the transdisciplinary, integral, and holistic framework of Lilliology, and was selected in an act of restoration, lifting up the indigenous roots of storying in the Academy. So I wrote 5 scholarly personal narratives, each woven together with with the themes that we've mentioned. Those 5 are landscape altar of languages, early morning languages to light, running with Orion, rhythms of language, rhythms of language, rhythms of life, lenses of lilies, water lilies, liliology, and languages. So the process that I went through is, first I listed, and here I'm gonna and plus anybody who wants this, you can have it afterwards. I listed all the required elements: language, landscape, wildness, beauty, and imagination. And I made sure that each of these narratives contain all of those. I printed out each one. I specifically brought in researchers and writers that are well known in the 5 different areas, in the 5 publications where these will be submitted. And if I don't get picked up in that one, I'll go to the next and go to the next and go to the next. But I was very mindful about writing to the audience while infusing the information and knowledge from the other genres. And then I identified all of the elements of Lilliology within each of the narratives. So each one has an acknowledgement of a story, of indigenous voice, of the brick wall, of the nourishing sweet potato, and of the spaces in between. And the hope is that these stories upon publication will serve as seed bombs. And what a seed bomb is literally a ball of clay, seed, and compost. And it's used to seed places that are otherwise tough to seed because the seeds will blow away. So you put all these together and then you can throw them in places that are otherwise inaccessible. And so my hope is that my stories will serve as seeding in places that are otherwise, where the information is otherwise inaccessible. The beauty of seed bombing, here you have in the palm of your hand a little revolution, something that can change the face of the earth. And storytellers ought not be too tame. They ought to be wild creatures who function adequately in society. They are best in disguise. If they lose all their wildness, they cannot give us the truest joys. And that's by Ben Okri. And the intention of this is to share that knowledge and also to raise awareness on the alarming and unprecedented rate of global language extinction through publication dedicated to readerships outside of the publications within the Academy. And I wanted to read one piece, Lifting Languages to Light. And anybody who knows me knows that I live for that sacred morning time, and the hours before the sun rises. And this is during that time. We lift language to light. Each language reflects a unique and irreplaceable light. With the loss of each language, all dimensions of that light extinguished forever, all the nuances, reflections, spectrums of color and connection gone. Yet somehow through writing, through lifting the language to light, perhaps, just perhaps, we might create a spark, an energy that will gain strength and grow. The early morning hours fill with the darkness of the night and the light of languages, written in spoken words form to create constellations of hope. Candles, pens, journals, and cups inhabit the landscape of my writing desk. I look out the window to see the obsidian color of the early morning. It was now a watercolor wash of pale grays and purples, lifting languages, lifting the day into light. May we do the same with languages. Why I conducted this study, I think, has become clear. I wanted to honor, I was talking to Amanda in Costa Rica here with us, and was also working on her PhD. And in Costa Rica, they refer to PhDs as chifladuras. I thought, because I had heard disertación, but I had never heard chifladura. So I wrote, what does that mean? And so she wrote me back and she said, it's so embedded. This word is so embedded in Costa Rican geography, culture, everything that we know about language. And a chiflón is like a force of nature. Cuidado con el chiflón. And so a chifladura is, she described it to me as like how different streams, different forces of nature, different streams of nature come together, that vortex of new energy down below. And I thought, that is perfect. That describes, well, I think probably every dissertation, but especially resonated with me for my dissertation beautifully. So I wanted to share that. And I hope the contributions will be to these various bodies of literature, to linguistic literatures, that language does become an element of landscape, that a recognition that linguistic loss is as vital to turn around for revitalization as ecological loss. In the academic publications, I hope to introduce lenses of wildness, beauty, and imagination, and other ways, and scholarly personal narrative, other ways of writing, and to bring transdisciplinarity and its relevance and the necessity for it right now into the world. And this idea of scholarly personal narrative and Lilliology, I really hope to contribute to academic writing, to academic ways of thinking and knowing, and expand those to include much more Lilliology, to include scholarly personal narrative. And while I haven't written those pieces yet, they're in my mind. I'm going to. That was one of the discoveries that I loved along the way. And I wanted to honor one of the things that Lucy wrote, a contribution that I hope I make. She wrote in a personal email, this idea of how rituals are embraced by the methodology of scholarly personal narrative. Tapahonso wrote, the sense of rituals reinforce the importance of learning a language, being part of a community, singing, praying, and stories as a part of healing, as well as the expression of familial closeness, running, lighting candles, water as creative muse, gratitude reflected in the dawn light, companionship of dogs, detailed images of plants, trees, coyotes. I run with the coyotes too. And so here's my journal in the morning, and here's back from one of my runs with Angus. I always run with the German Shepherd, and it's very important to match your running attire with your dog's chew toy. That is something important to remember. So I think I have honored, provide an explanation explicitly about how to contribute. Conclusions and beginnings. And this is a picture from Oaxaca. While the end of the journey of this dissertation draws near, my overall sense is one of new chapters. My relationship with language, wildness, beauty, and imagination deepened immeasurably, and Lilliology, during this journey in profound and emergent ways. I feel great excitement about what the next chapter holds and how this relationship will continue to unfold and expand, and I can't wait to write about it. And in honor of my colleagues and dear friends on this journey, when writing my dissertation, this was the best thing. Sorry, I can't. I'm working on my dissertation. I offer that to you, and write yourself a happy ending. And now we shall move to questions and conversation.
Wow, thank you, Dawn. Thank you so much for this phenomenal presentation. And Myra, maybe, is it okay to stop sharing screen so we can see everyone?
I hope so.
Yeah, Myra
Okay,
can
great.
sharing screen.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. It's nice to see you following this phenomenal presentation. You did a great job, like really kind of bringing in the multiple threads that were engaged with and covered in your work. And I'm excited to see the discussion that will unfold now. And what I love to do when a student presents is to have a first round where the committee actually appreciates the work, offers you a reflection of appreciation before we ask any questions, you know? And so I'd like to open that up now to the committee, and I'd like to invite Dr. Lucy Tapahanso as our external committee member to just offer Dawn some words of appreciation.
Yes, thank you. I'm honored to be with everyone this morning, and especially to hear Dawn talk about, really talk about her dissertation in an abbreviated and very clear way. I think that to hear language, to hear a voice behind the, the 228 pages of the dissertation, to hear the voice and see the face and in her own environment is really important to to SPN, and I think so it works, all works in very well together. I also appreciated the images of landscape and people, animals, birds, and so and then the integration of different languages as well, because usually this kind of academic work is primarily in English. So I really appreciated that. And I think that in that sense, one of the things that I said, one of the things I mentioned to you was to think about using SPN as the dissertation as an example. So I'm glad that you did that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that guidance, wisdom.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lucy. Jennifer, there you are. Yes.
Well, Dawn, that was a spectacular presentation, and it's not surprising that you have such scintillating, gorgeous images all throughout that evoke so beautifully so many reflections of your life, your vast experience. And really, this work to me is absolutely a magnum opus. It's a project that I profoundly enjoyed being on, partly because I think I played a little bit of a provocateur and sometimes asked provocative questions, and we would sort of go in a circle with these provocative questions. But my own experience each time was that I would circle back through and around to a deeper appreciation of your own wisdom and gifts and artistry. Really, you're an artist, you're a writer, and you're a brilliant thinker. And so this is a very powerful work that I think the medium was the message, in the sense that you show this incredible power of language with your own linguistic gifts, which I think I've only fully really come to see after going through the whole process with you. So it's just an incredible gift. I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Dawn, it's been an amazing journey. I've just so appreciated learning with you. You know, I mean, I know about SPN, but these are new methods, right? That we are exploring and developing together. And it gains, it benefits from the experience of it. We keep learning about it as we engage with it. So through your engagement with it, we are both learning, we are all learning about SPN and the potential for SPN. And what I really appreciate about your work is it really speaks to my heart about what academics is for. Because for me, academic and scholarship, if it's not for creating a better world, you know, if it's not for creating social justice, if it's not for creating the transformation that we need, why go to school? That's for me. And so in this act of translation that you undertook from what I call academies, academic language, into these beautiful, beautiful narratives that are accessible to multiple audiences, to gain that knowledge and awareness that before was hidden, sort of kept locked behind a brick wall, is the power of this work. And as an offering of restoration and justice, and as a way to push against the brick wall and push against the academy, and to envision dissertations that include the sweet potato, that include the lily, that include the spider web, because that is what we need. We can't keep them out. They all come together with the brick wall. And so I just truly, truly honor the impact of the stories as they get published and seeded out into the world. So thank you. Thank you so much for asking me to be on this journey with you. I would like to ask if it's okay for Dr. Ned Narida Blair, if she would like to offer appreciation or a comment, since her work was so instrumental.
Thank you, May, and thank you, Dawn. I am somewhat overwhelmed by how you've managed to use the framework and create so much beauty through your storying. I would love the opportunity to read the dissertation at some point. I think what you've done is show such connectedness and relatedness, and that is so powerful and so important for us. The concept of storing can be so powerful if we allow it to be. And I love the connection that you've made with SPN. It's just, yeah, I'm a little overwhelmed right now, and I'm really grateful to you and respect the way you've taken something a little bit out there to push the brick wall, to push the academy. So thank you. And thanks, May, for the opportunity.
Absolutely, thank you. Again, we're thrilled that you could join us at this time from Australia, Ned, and we're really happy you're here. Again, I'm as much a fan as Dawn is, just to let you know that. When I saw that chapter in the book, I'm like, oh my God, this is what I've been waiting for. I want to read this. So, thank you.
Ned, that makes at least many of us overwhelmed. Thank you so much.
So we'll move next into sort of a discussion of your work, Dawn, and I will open it up again to the committee to ask questions, offer any kind of feedback to your presentation, to your dissertation. whatever it is that, whatever comments that need to be brought up at this point. And again, if it's okay, I will start with Dr. Lucy, our external committee member. Again, what questions do you have for Dawn at this time?
So, as I said, I really appreciated so many different aspects of your presentation. I think that the emphasis on stories is really important. And I just like the whole, the overall concept that you've presented, which is innovative and which is new, and which I think can appeal to many people, not just students or academics on different levels. So I'm wondering, how will you're at the end of the dissertation, how will this research be implemented? And you teach at the Santa Fe Community College, and I'm just wondering, how have you thought about how you will present this and then implement into the curriculum?
I have actually thought about that. I tried not to count my chickens before they hatch. That said, I actually have thought about it, and I'm very excited about that chapter, because the whole point of this inquiry is to take these ideas out. And so it will begin with the publication of those 5 narratives. What I didn't anticipate and what I now plan on is writing and publishing also about SPN and about Lilliology. I didn't know that that's what I would end up doing, but I absolutely plan on doing that, and taking those publications and presenting and hopefully really taking those ideas out into the world. And so, and I attend and present at conferences, both within landscape literature and academia. And these ideas, these bombs are going to go out into both of those areas. Holistic management. This is a whole, this whole idea of language as element of landscape and links diversity and eco-diversity. So in a way, I feel as if, yes, my work is just beginning. I really feel this chapter of my professional, this when you feel like this is one of those things you were born to do, and this is what you were meant to do. These I passionately feel that. At the I have some colleagues in Europe interested, and yeah, it's just the beginning of that. But I absolutely will do that. Well, I promise you.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it.
And I think
think
you
that
posted
a
on
lot
all.
of people will be excited. Oh,
So we'll do a few.
I'm very excited about it. So
Thank you.
I think
Lucy,
and a lot of
so
people
much
will
to
be
me.
welcoming, will welcome the whole idea and sort of think of it as another way to, tell our stories, preserve our history, and then really another way to kind of think about ourselves in terms of stories.
Yes.
Thank you, Lucy. I'm going to do a couple of rounds of questions, so we'll come back around for more questions, and I'm going to ask Jennifer.
Gosh, it's so fun to talk about your work, Dawn. I know. I feel like at this point we've gotten past my more like thorny, I can't help myself. I just how I am. I like to try to find the toughest question I possibly can and start from there. Maybe it's not a good habit, but I think that the conversations we've had have really really challenged and transformed my thinking. And that to me is kind of rare. And I think also it's been, I mean, I think again, so I think now that we're over the thorniest questions, we can have the most fun. I went back to one of the very first drafts I commented on, and you were writing out your topic. You were describing what you're going to focus. You said something along the lines of, my topic focuses on the intersection of language and literature through a transdisciplinary approach that comes out of linguistics, linguistic human rights, landscape literature, and holistic resource management. And I remember getting so excited about that combination. And I wrote in the margin, gorgeous, and I love the interlinkages and interminglings. And I think that feeling has really stayed with me, and it's been at a core of some questions I've had around how do you bring things together? And I think one of your gifts, again, is more of a comment than a question, but I think there's all kinds of questions in it somewhere, is that you do have this gift. The way you express things and the way you think is almost beyond transdisciplinary. It's I think you are a very talented creative writer, and in your power for metaphor is almost beyond transdisciplinary. Do you see what I mean? So I think that's been just an inquiry for me all in and of itself. And I think that one of the things I've come around to is I've seen that, in fact, I think there was times when I was trying to look in this sort of practical way as how is she putting it together? And then I had to realize, no, she just puts it together. And if we take the different core themes, for example, beauty, wildness, imagination, for you, those are inherently part of your life and your experience and your landscape and how you live your life, I think. When you talk about landscape, you tend to talk about it in what's already, we might say complex transdisciplinary ways, this imbricate order. It's rich and full and emergent, or whatever we would say. The same thing with language, as you were saying earlier in this call, that languages are like worlds. You had a couple of great quotes in your presentation. There's this integral or wondrous nature of the world of a language, and I think you have a real sense of that. And even as you transmit that already, that changes people's consciousness and the way they think about languages and landscapes. And so, and I guess the last thing I'll say, I don't want to speak too long, but in parallel to being witness to this incredible work you've been doing, it's also, I think coincidentally, but happily, been the time when I've been the deepest in my own immersion in Indigenous scholarship and Indigenous wisdom, and just been reading and absorbing lots. People like, I told you that the podcast I've been listening to a lot, different books of Tyson Yunka Porta, Kucha Riesling Balding, Corinna Gold, Tayo Kassen Ghost Horse. I hope I'm saying all these names all right. Ruth Chavaya Keeson Miller. And one of the things I started to notice that so many of these thinkers also have this talent, this knack you have, the inherent integral. And so it's really forced me to kind of go in circles, challenging some of my own beliefs or moorings, if you will. And I think in very generative ways that I think at the end of the day holds a place, but a better place for the, a more generative place for relationships between different ways of knowing and conversing. And I think the circles I've come around have come around to actually deeper cultural humility and better appreciation that, anyway. So I guess the last thing I'll say is just that one of the things I've learned from you and from some Indigenous scholars in parallel with this is that a kind of a grounded, everyday, integral way of thinking may be more what we need, and the kind of a new theory, if you will, or and so I guess just as a question, I wonder if you've had a journey along these lines, if some of these kind of threads have been transformative for you as you go. Maybe it's just deepened because a lot of this, as I say, is, I think, just your natural talent. So I'm sorry, that's a very broad question, but
no, thank you. And thank you. And I love in our conversations, Jennifer, those thorny areas, you strengthened the work. Those were such important, those were really important ideas and questions, and so I'm incredibly grateful for those because it really strengthened the work, and so thank you for those. And yeah, I would say especially around the ideas of beauty, wildness, and imagination. I mean, with the professional, yes, that's, you know, but I've had during very difficult chapters of life when I realized that it was like the world looked like, I realized one day it was like I was living in the black and white version of Kansas in The Wizard of Oz, because life was just so hard and had been for so long, and somehow over time, without my noticing it, the color had just leached out of it. And I was on a run one day when I noticed it, and I thought, I'm seeing like black and white, there's no color. And without meaning to get to, anyways, I heard create beauty, and it was like this little tiny weak spark in what was a very and had been a very time for many years. And I clung to it and I hung on to it. And so it was very much a choice. It wasn't, and I tried to think of little things I could do every day that would be create beauty or notice beauty, even if it was just like, how's the light shining on this coffee cup? Because some days that, you know, like that was a lot of beauty for that day. So I could take it. And then that got its own energy going. And so then but beauty, it started with beauty, and then came wildness, and then came imagination. But I was very intentional. Now I think it kind of is a way I see the world, but for many years I was intentional about weaving those ideas and reading everything I could and trying to figure out what that meant for me in my life. So I love that question. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, wait. Thank you, Jennifer. Great. So Dawn, again, we've been talking for a while now, so it's not like I have a question of your work, but more an appreciation or a lifting up to the audience here about the impact of your work, you know. And what I see in the way you use scholarly personal narrative, and in what both Lucy and Jennifer talked about, the integralness in your being, the way you're able to weave everything together. So sometimes I see students that are engaging with transdisciplinarity, but we've been so conditioned, well, speaking about many of us have been so conditioned in a Western linear way that we cannot imagine when we write how to bring it all together. We still try to kind of categorize, right? And transdisciplinarity, it's not that there aren't no categories, but it's a different way of categorizing. It's a different way of integrating, right? And what I love about scholarly personal narrative and the narratives that you created is it allows for that categorization and linearity, our like desire to go there for certainty, to fade, and allows for it to meld together, you know. So you're saying the same thing that could be written in heavy academic language, but you're saying it in this different way where it seamlessly comes together, right? And I think that is a contribution to transdisciplinarity and creativity. Like, how can we express this creatively, you know? How does it all come together? And stories can hold that.
Yeah.
Because stories are read in a different way, are held in a different way. Yeah. Right. So you can articulate and express that integral space, that interconnected space. I think much deeper than if you're using a more kind of linear or different way of writing, less creative, if you will. I'm not sure what the word is, right? And so that comes through with your stories. And then to bring in Lilliology to transdisciplinarity, to me, opened it up even further, the role of this sweet potato right there, it's that unfelt, unseen energy being that brings it all together. And that comes through you as the researcher, as the creator, as the writer, as the weaver of this web, as the weaver of this web. And so all that, when I read this is what, again, I love epistemology and methodology because that's where we can be revolutionary. It's not about the content, right? We can all like read and understand something, but it's like how we move forward with this knowledge, right? And so you create these 5 beautiful narratives that I hope everybody gets a chance to read, right? That carry me, they transported me on to your run, to the sky, to the color, to the image, to the feel, to the texture. It's all there, right? And then what I'd love for you to share is when you talk about seeding them, tell us about these journals, tell us about the audience, tell us about the wide reach.
Okay.
I mean, your plan is like these journals and these publications. Right?
Yeah.
Tell us what they are so that we can have a visual of where this will live.
Okay, so I selected 5 journals to begin with, each with an intention of a different seeding space. And so one of those seeding space is the journal Landscape, and that's Lang. And that is from Terra Lingua, from that organization. And that I specifically selected because it was started, Luisa Maffei started that, and intentionally tries to bring academic, global, linguistic ideas into accessible language. Their readership is very global. The vast majority of their readership are primary language speakers of other languages. And so that is, and it's all about cultural and eco-linguistic diversity. And it goes out all over the world. And so that is one of the places. Another place that I would love to get published and where I will submit is to Orion magazine, which is very much based in landscape literature. If I could get a piece there, but I'm going to submit Running with Orion there, and hopefully get these ideas of language and language loss and indigenous languages interrelated into the landscape readership. Another one that is ISLE, and it's from the organization, and Jennifer introduced me to this. It is, what is it? The Association for Literature and Landscape. I'm blanking on it right now. It's very academic and highly academic, very global, and very transdisciplinary, actually. But one of the final piece, the Lilies of the Lilliology, is the one that I would like to share there, because it is read by other researchers, it is read by other people within the academic field, and to get these ideas and this framework out. And then High Desert Journal is another one, because a lot of people for holistic resource management read High Desert Journal. And so another one there, I'm blanking on one, but anyways, they were all selected deliberately to try to seed these ideas in very distinct readerships to try to infuse with the other. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dawn.
Yeah.
I want to add one thing here. We always in dissertations say, what is the original? At the end of the day, what's your contribution, right?
Yeah.
Your original contribution are these stories,
Yeah.
And what you just told us is where they will live. So I really, really appreciated that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Dr. Ned, I would also love to invite you if you have any question at this point. I know you haven't read the dissertation and you've only just heard the presentation, but please, if you have a question, we'd love to hear it.
Not so much a question, just a reflection. You've added so much dimension through your imaging, through your words. And I think that's exactly what the Academy needs right now. And particularly right now, I talked in the beginning about country with a capital C and that idea of co-becoming with country. And you've done that so beautifully, connecting yourself to, there's a quote from Bawaka Country et al. It's a beautiful piece that some scholars from Macquarie University in Australia went to Arnhem Land and have worked with people, traditional people, for a long period of time. And they talk about country not just being a backdrop for human existence. And I think that's a really important concept. And I think what I've seen you do is transform that. You have co-become with the concept of country through your work. And I really hope that you take it and do exactly what you're saying. I love Lucy's idea of the curriculum. I'm doing a fair bit of work with Lilliology and curriculum at the moment through performance arts, through NASDA Dance College, who I teach with, but also sit on their board, and Australian Film and Television, and in that sort of space. And it's so exciting to see people being vulnerable. And that's what you've had to be in this. You've had to be vulnerable to immerse yourself in all of this and co-become. So again, I just thank you. It's a wonderful journey, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you go from here with all of this. It's fantastic. And I'm really glad to hear the reference to Tyson Yunkaporta as well, actually, because of course he's a countryman and colleague. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lucy, Dr. Tepahanso, I'd like to turn it back to you. Do you have another question or any other comment? You're mute. Okay.
I have comments rather than, rather than questions. I see this research functioning much the way that stories or connect function in the lifeways, in that in telling a story, many times people don't maybe don't get the immediate, they like the story, but don't get the deeper implications until much later in life. And in fact, I was just talking to my brother yesterday, and he was telling me about some things that my father told him when he was a young boy. And he said, just today, I realized what he meant. So there's these ways of thinking and history. And I really like the connection to land, because that's really where, as you have pointed out, that's where our languages come from. Place names, for us, our clans come from the land. And I like the way that, so I think it functions in many different ways, that at first you don't get the the full implications. And then as time goes on, you begin to sort of understand, or maybe events happen and then you're able to connect with the story that you were told. I like the fact that you integrated your own stories and family stories into the dissertation, because it reflects like the reality of what it means to go through this process and all the things that can push it forward, all the things that can pause it. So, but then, you know, you went on, you completed it regardless of what, you know, things that might have stalled it. I liked the way that theories and concepts are shown in images, and the way that art is integrated, photography and art are integrated to illustrate theory. So I really appreciated that, rather than having another footnote that explains what you mean. So, and then the emphasis, you know, you mentioned, and I in the beginning, or yeah, at the beginning talked about Hujun, the idea of balance and beauty, and really that there's, you know, we're really kind of immersed in this universe in beauty, but we must recognize it, or we must be aware of it. So, yeah, so I just want to sort of, you know, just reiterate that how the way that it functions, what you're doing in some ways functions as functions in Navajo stories or oral literatures.
Thank you so much, Lucy. That means so much to me. And what you say about the presentation, because that was my hope, was that the presentation itself would embody the ideas presented. And so that means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucy. Jennifer, do you have?
Yeah, so so fun to talk about, Dawn. I want to plant a little, maybe one of my own seed bombs,
Yeah.
which won't be completely new to you, but
I'm ready.
I think this version, I mean, it's not even so much for today, so much as hopefully for our continuing conversations beyond this celebratory moment and into the future. And that is that we've talked a lot about a lot of different ways in which, you know, you bring inherent power to what you do. And really, I want to emphasize, I think, talents that are somewhat rare for this kind of inherent integral expression in creative ways that people can really hear, as people have pointed out, through story. And I do think that there's a certain power also that you could potentially connect up more, and that would be around the drivers of what is driving the destruction of landscapes and languages,
Right.
and what is driving the climate emergence. Because I think what is driving the destruction of landscapes and languages and what is driving the climate emergency are very largely the same things. And so therefore, if we don't really address one, we won't address the other. And this is not for any one individual. Obviously, even the world's nations have committed in the Paris Agreement 1% of what's needed. If you add up all the obligations of what countries have committed to, it's only 1% of the emissions reductions that would be needed, scientists tell us, to stop this disaster. And I think that we've seen different angles on what can be powerful and evocative around this unique and somewhat totalizing emergency that we're beginning to live into and see expressed. And the power of Greta Thunberg, she just gave another great speech, the blah, blah, blah speech. It's worth looking into. But the people listen to beauty and inspiration. People listen to new imaginaries. People listen to new stories. People are moved by aesthetic genius. And you have that. And so it's just, I guess, more of an invitation for a continuing conversation around, because you are a master threader, threading this as you go forward.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I think that's a marvelous idea. And let's talk more about that and have more conversations. I would love, yeah. Thank you for that seed bomb.
You can throw one right back at me, because
Yeah.
that was easy, we'd be having Nobel Prizes or something. So
Yeah,
take it with a grain of salt.
No, I love that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Again, it's, what I'm hearing again is your talent for translation. Really, you are multilingual, and now you're translating academic language and speeches that are not accessible to others into beauty, wildness, and imagination that people can relate to. I read this once, feminist standpoint theory, right? That we all write from a standpoint. And what if our standpoint was written as a story? Then when it's offered, the person reading a story reads a story to see how they relate. Not whereas when you read something else, you might read something as separate from you. But stories invite us to see how we relate with someone's story. Reading your stories about, your rituals in your own family and your daily routines and whatnot invites me to explore my own rituals, invites me to think, whoa, how do I do this? How does my family do this? And so this, translating this knowledge through stories allows people to relate and to invites people in some way. As Lucy was saying, her brother, after many years, was invited back in to consider a story because it was told that way. And so that is very powerful, So just wanted to offer that. In the form of questions, we've had so many incredible conversations, when we talk about language, it's not like, it's right or wrong, like this is the way to do it. There's one way to do this. There's one way to bring back languages. We are all speaking in English, right? We are all speaking in English here. So we are embedded in this process of linguicide and the extinction of languages just because of the nature of what English has done in the world, right? And so we have to be able, like for me, I had to be able to live with this paradox and acknowledge that we are working from where we are with this. We are working from where we are with this. And it's not because what I've encountered in the academy when students or myself, we encounter some brand new worldview or perspective, it becomes the ideal. Everything else is thrown away and then it becomes pure. I want to do something that is purely this way and the way it was done 5,000 years ago, because I've encountered this wisdom right here, right now. And so we should all not be speaking in English right now because we are reenacting something, right? And so I just want to say that, to invite us all to keep holding these paradoxes, because, and that's another layer, and that's another element of Lilliology and transdisciplinarity. It allows us to do that, it allows us to do that. It allows us to bring in the brick wall with the lily, with everything else, because it's all necessary. Yeah. Right. It's all necessary so we can move forward. And so, I mean, did you just to kind of help us along the way as listening, how did that feel when you encountered any of those kind of like, wait, this is not quite straightforward. There's a little paradox here. You know, I mean, did that come up for you writing this? And
Well,
what
it
all
came-
our students here that are facing?
Yes,
Yeah.
it came up pretty much every time well, especially initially, but even later when I said what I was going to do in general, not you, and not Jennifer, but in general, people inside and outside the academy were like, what are you doing? What are you going to do with those? And so I encountered it constantly. Yeah, and it was I knew, even though there were, especially like, even when I couldn't articulate necessarily, I knew in my heart what I was going to do. I just didn't have the words initially to be able to describe it. And so, and I think, and for the other students out there on this journey, tap into, like, just trust that inner, like I just knew, and I didn't know if I could do it. I knew what I visualized and what I was going to try to do. I knew what I was going to try. I didn't know if I could do it or not, but I knew what I was going to try to do. And I also was very cautious, and just coming from, as a writer, you learn not to talk about what you've written until you've written it, because otherwise the energy can be dispersed. And so I was very cautious about who I talked about all this with. And because I wanted that energy to go into the work, whatever it was going to be, and so I was very, very cautious about that. And I'm grateful for that, because now I can talk about it, and now I have the language, now I have that. But those paradoxes, somehow, yeah, and we're speaking a colonial language, and I'm writing in a colonial language, and we're lifting up language loss in Indigenous languages. And being who I am, being in multilingual education, I feel we all have something to contribute. And what that is differs, but know what it is that you want to contribute and be comfortable with that. I mean, I would say that's how I live with that. And I'm okay with paradox. I have a big tolerance for ambiguity. I've learned that over the course of my life. So did that answer that question, Meg?
I mean, to me, again, it's the creativity that allows us to bring paradox into something harmonious, right?
Yeah.
It's in the story that you can bring paradox into something harmonious rather than something oppositional, and remain like, oh my God, what do I do with this? Right? What do I do with this?
Right. Oh yeah. Well, and I think there's the action that goes with it, because when you're immersed in climate change or the devastating effects of language loss, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. And so what do you do with that to create something hopefully beneficial, and to channel that energy into something beneficial and creative and actionable.
Right. And not get stuck in but we can't move because this is
right.
That history. But how do we move through it with integrity? How do we move through it? I totally appreciate the restorative lens that you also bring. So, how do we move through it in those ways? So because you do a great job with that in the dissertation, these like weaving of paradoxes in the stories. So thank you.
Phew.
The committee, Lucy, Jennifer, Ned, anybody, even though you're not on the committee, Ned, just given that we all
welcome, you are now.
Welcome. Any other questions before I open it up to the audience?
I have a quick one.
Yes.
I have a real quick one, which is just, I wonder, Dawn, if, because you're multilingual and you engage with communities that are speaking different languages and have different cultures. As we know, the US is unceded, incredibly diverse and rich territories. So I just wonder if you have any projects, ideas, or thoughts along the lines of bringing your work into conversations to lift voices, to lift people speaking their own languages and telling their own stories that might connect.
That's a marvelous idea. Yeah, that's a marvelous idea. Like I said, I didn't want to, I was trying to make it to today.
I know.
And so I was like, I didn't want to count my chickens, but I think, yeah, as I said, I feel like it's the whole next chapter. It's a brand new beginning that is wide open. I just know this will be at the center of my professional work, and what comes from it. As you know, I'm such a believer in follow the energetic flow, and you follow the flow where there's energy, and I don't even need to know where the flow is going, but if it's got energy, I'll follow it. And so I think if, like, as you said that, I was like, oh, that has energy. So yeah, I think anything could, I love that idea. Thank you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would just like to make a comment about using a colonized language.
Mm.
You know, one of the quotes you used was from John Trudell about language. He said, I'm not going to learn my own language. Instead, I'm going to use English to make my point, since they forced me to learn English. So I think, you know, that was also the case with me, was that I was forced to learn English. And I like the turn, kind of the point that you make, that since we were forced to learn English, then we'll use it to our benefit. Then we will use it to present our ideas, new ideas, and use the same methods that you know, academia uses or the colonizers use, but then use their own language to reach wider audiences, and then to infuse or influence American life with our philosophy and with our thinking. And it won't be exactly the same because it's in English, but it still is, I think it's still relevant. And we see that, you know, reflected with the rise of the increase in Indigenous scholars and writers, and who all present their own ways of telling stories or sharing experiences, primarily in English, but readers and listeners already have the sense that this is not grounded in, this is grounded in a whole different reality or whole different foundation that I'm not familiar with, but I want to know more. So I really like that point that you made in your dissertation, that although people are using English, we're using it in a way that is going to benefit us and people in the future, and then influence the way people think about us in general.
Oh, thank you. And Lucy, you wrote about that so beautifully. I did. I include your response. I added it to the dissertation because you wrote so eloquently and beautifully and powerfully about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucy. And this is the work that I think some of us that teach, I hope are dedicated towards opening doors and thresholds for this other way of expressing in English to be validated, to be accepted in the academy, because there are multiple ways to even speak in English, right? And when we're in the academy, there's an overarching way to use English in the academy, right? And so to open the doors of the academy to story, to circular, to spiral, to webs, to integral, as a different way of speaking English. So thank you so much for that. Absolutely. Yeah. I would like to open it up now for the audience to ask Dawn a question, offer a reflection, and at the same time, I'm just looking at the time, and I'm going to ask Myra to create a breakout room for Lucy, Jennifer, and myself so we can confer. Dawn, will it be okay for you to facilitate the audience
Absolutely.
conversation while we hop on for a
Absolutely.
little bit? Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, hello. See, I haven't been able to see who all's here because all I could see was my screen. And plus I knew I would get distracted. Yeah, please turn your cameras on. Oh my gosh, hello. I'm just gonna, here we are. I'm gonna open it up and just, oh Mom, this is where you're supposed to come in here. I just remembered. May said you could come in here now. Yeah, if you want, come on in. This is when you come in with me. Yeah. Make sure I don't knock over my altar. I'm just gonna open it up and, oh, there's there's my lady Elizabeth. Oh, my precious girl. Oh.
Felicidades, Dawn, te amamos mucho. Saludos.
Ay,
Hola.
mira, qué preciosidad. Las amo muchísimo también. Mil gracias por todo. Mira qué preciosidad. Oh. Yeah, I'm just going to open it up for anybody because I'm just basking in all of you right now. I haven't had a chance to see. Oh, I haven't had a chance to see you. Oh, of course, I want to send out love and hugs and love and hugs. Oh, and there's Morgan. There's Morgan right there. Mary. Okay, I'm just going to open it up. And Mom, pull a chair in. Pull a chair in. Or do you have to go? Yeah, they're ready. Oh, okay. Do you need to go right now? Okay. Okay. Mom and I have some. Mom's supposed to be in another meeting right now. This is my mom, everyone, for everyone who doesn't know her.
I want to hear what Jill and Lee are going to ask, and
Okay. Can you give them just a look?
they're waiting now.
They're waiting.
Yeah.
They're waiting.
I got to go back to the brick wall.
Okay. She does, actually. Okay. Okay. You have to. Okay. Well, okay. Okay. Bye.
Bye,
You can,
everybody.
yeah.
Dina's still there.
Is it
Yeah.
Daddy's still
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Feel free to turn on your mic or however, because I'm going back and forth between screens. Just if you want to just start talking or say anything.
I would like to say, Dawn, I would like to say,
Charlie. Oh, go ahead. Jerry and then Charlie. Okay,
Okay.
Jerry.
yeah, I would just love to say that, Dawn, just seeing so many people on this call is amazing. I didn't know what to expect, but I didn't expect so many people. So I would put forward that you are absolutely fluent in the language of beauty and inspiration.
Oh, thank you so much, Jerry. I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you. You and I'll start crying. Thank you. Charlie. Charlie, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the time. Congratulations first. That was wonderful. I see your committee gave you great comments. As far as regenerative agriculture, everybody, I'm an agriculture teacher at Santa Fe Community College. Where do you see this kind of new way of thinking and teaching blending in, maybe with what I do at the college, but your regenerative agriculture focus? Where do you see yourself in the future and how this is going to tie in and what's going to become of that with you?
I would love to talk more about that. What I think is, and that is, you know, coming from like the whole ranching world and background, but it's all about biodiversity. It's all about diversity. And what I see is people within regenerative agriculture really understand that. But language, which is intricately related with the ecology, has not been a part of that conversation. So what I would love to do is to bring that idea of eco-linguistic diversity into that conversation. is what I see. Yeah, and Charlie, there's and I didn't go into this research right now, but there's research that the correlation between linguistic diversity and ecological diversity is there's a 74% correlation. Where there are more languages, there's more eco-linguistic or ecological diversity, which I didn't go into, but there is so much stuff on that, and so much. I mean, there's so many things that can be done with that.
Cool.
So,
I look forward to working with you more.
me too, Charlie. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Marie,
I'm here.
you're here. Look at your fantastic hair. Oh my gosh, fabulous.
Oh, well, it's
Yes.
supposed to be blue.
Yes,
Speaking from the teaching angle,
yes.
how are you going to bring your ideas and Lilliology into your teaching, into your assignments? Or is this going to be something that you're introducing your students to tablespoon by tablespoon, or are you going to push them into the pond?
That all needs to evolve, because right now, at least at the college, all of my work is administrative. It's like is primarily administrative. And so where I would like to go with this is I would love to start to integrate this into teaching and into classes. I'm going to start with probably mostly publications and presentations, and then anybody who wants me to come and talk. But I've also thought of creating coursework based on this, and creating classes based on this. And I've identified some different institutions with programs that I think would be receptive to that. Which I was waiting to get through today in order to send out those proposals. But I would love to create classes around these ideas.
Well, if I could make a suggestion, do something that pulls the students in, because you made a point of making this accessible.
Right.
Maybe you could offer your students an opportunity, all the students of the college, an opportunity to bring new languages and bring give them a break. You live in Santa Fe. Bring those landscapes into things in ways that defy those categorizations, that defy
I love that, Marie.
disciplines, and make it transdisciplinary by saying, okay, so you're a geologist. Okay, what kind of language would enrich your field? Or pulling that kind of thing in, so that it not only helps the students articulate in new ways, but gives other students an idea of, oh, wait a minute, I could do that. I could do something.
I love that. I love that.
Taking what you're doing and making it accessible to the students, which would shape their thinking in very profound ways, in my humble opinion.
Well, and that's, I love that idea, Marie. And that's something that I could start. That's something that I could start. Maybe even sooner rather than later, is just conversations around the college with different, departments and people.
And keep it very fluid in that, okay, we're going to have a week where we just, bring in words that intrigue you, or that describe something that, you don't think English or any of the colonial languages really have a word for.
Right. Yeah. I love that. And that's giving me good food for thought, Marie. Thank you so much.
Dawn, we're back. Your committee is
Yes.
back. Can I see, where are Jennifer and Lucy? I wish there was a way to, anyway. I think we're all back. So Dawn, after a really long conversation, it took all of a few minutes, your committee has decided that you have passed your oral defense, Dr. Dawn Wink, and we're ready to move on to the next stages of graduation. So congrats. From the bottom of my heart.
Congratulations, Dawn.
Yeah.
Party on, party.
On. There's going to be some paperwork that you and I can handle afterwards, but that's going to be another day.
Okay.
Congratulations, Dawn.
Congrats, Dawn.
Thank you so much. Oh.
Congratulations, Dawn.
Congratulations, Morgan. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, and thank you for inviting me on this journey. I learned a lot, and it was very illuminating for me. Congratulations.
Thank you so
Okay.
much for sharing this journey with me, Lucy. It was sacred. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Said, Dawn, just a
We'll
real
be in
nice-
touch.
Oh, we will. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful. I look forward to reconnecting soon.
Oh,
Congratulations.
me too, Jennifer. Thank you so much. Thank you. Mwah, thank you.
Dawn, it was magnificent. It's Connie.
Oh, Connie.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've learned so much. You
Oh,
have expanded my epistemology, which is
oh,
the greatest gift you can help anybody with.
oh. Connie, thank you so much. That means so much to me.
It was magnificent. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Mwah.
Hi, Connie.
Hi, May. I've got so many, I took notes on everything you said too.
Oh.
Thank you so much.